Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a little feature video on Rusty. Rusty is for sale. We've come to the conclusion that we don't use him as much as we'd like to, and he needs a home where he gets utilized more and he gets utilized to his full potential. So I'm going to go over some of the most recent additions and some of the features. The reason I built the Snowcat is, if you go back in my channel, you'll notice I had a Subaru Baja with mat tracks on it. So I took what I learned from that and built it into the Snowcat. Now I thought that the perfect Snowcat should have a single track system, one on each side obviously, and the ability to move a lot of weight around. Excellent flotation, a turbo diesel power plant, and a mechanical transmission. So, as some of you know, the Isuzu power plants, especially of the 4BDT or 2T variety, are mechanically noisy. Once they get older, they're clackety. It's all part of the way they run. I did a feature video a while back on the same motor in a bunch of different vehicles, and when they have higher mileage they all sound the same. I have gone through Rusty. I'll leave a link in the description to the build series playlist for this Snowcat. There's nothing that I haven't gone through, fixed, touched, rebuilt, made new again. I'm very meticulous with my builds, so somebody who gets Rusty is going to be extremely happy with their purchase. And I just want to go over some of the features and then give you some contact information and some pricing information, and then we can go from there. So on the outside of Rusty here, I always get questions, are you ever going to paint him? Well, no. The whole premise behind this was to take 16 gauge stainless sheeting and let it weather on its own after I went over it with a mild steel cup. Now, can you revert back? Absolutely you can. If you take a full stainless cup and you go over this, you know, it'll take about a day, and some acetone and some clear coat, you could have a mirror finish on this thing if you wanted. I like the older Mad Max look because it's such a newer build. I still wanted it to look nostalgic and old. So that's kind of the idea I came up with. We go up here. We have a engine access, well, to the front of the engine anyway. There's a doghouse inside the cab that I'll show you guys, but everything is in here meticulous and neat. Everything works as it should. On the rooftop here, we got a couple of trailer vents, and we got 300 watts of solar that goes to a solar charge controller, which I'll show you inside the Snowcat. And it also has two batteries, two 125 amp hour batteries inside. You'll notice on the front of Rusty here we have a winch. There's also the exact same one in the rear. They're 9,500 pounds. We've used them several times. They work great. All the lighting on Rusty is LED. There's a couple of Hella Supertone horns in there. Most recently went through all of the, I guess you could call them bogies or idlers or whatever you want. All of these wheels and tires are brand new and foam filled, except for the front and the rear. Those two are from 2020. They're still in great shape, but these are all brand new, the intermediates I guess you could say, and they're all foam filled, every single one of them. Come around to the rear here, you see the other winch that we've got set up. Let's go inside the cab here into the passenger area. So here we are inside the passenger area. This is I want to say it's a 40 or 45 gallon tank. I've never really figured it out. It's always pretty much half full. So that works out pretty good. Getting it in and out of the cat's pretty easy. We've got all these handles everywhere. There's plenty of room for passengers and gear back here. His payload is a ton. So as he sits right now, he weighs about 7,500 pounds, but he can carry an additional 2,000 pounds. We've had 6 people back here before, and myself and a passenger up front. Works great. You can see here, let me turn the light on in here so you guys can see. I've got lights set up in the cargo area here. This is the motherboard, I guess you could call it, to where I routed all of the electrical. And I was very meticulous and neat about this. So we've got relays, circuit breakers. The starter is hardwired, doesn't go through the circuit breakers because I was having a problem with the circuit breakers popping, because it draws more amps than the circuit breakers will allow. Right here we have the hydronic heating system, which I'm going to turn on right now. And so what that does is it runs a hydronic coolant heating loop through the engine block and this little radiator. And so it's starting up right now, and it's going to run some warm coolant through the block and through this radiator fan. And then when it gets to a certain temperature, these fans will turn on and the cab will heat up. So you basically have a little area back here you could camp in if you really wanted. There is space for it. You would obviously have to take the jump seats out, so you would have room for your head. But this door folds up gull wing style, and we found it pretty handy when we're going down trails. If you want to do some filming or something, you can just leave the door up, have somebody sitting back here, and you can film off the back door. It's pretty awesome. I use rock lights for the interior lighting everywhere. So you see there's 4 of them back here. And then there's 2 more up front here. We're going to go up front here in a little bit, and I'll show you that. There is biodiesel in the tank. It's about half full. I start Rusty up every month at least once and run them to operating temperature and then shut them down. And like I said, these motors are notorious for being noisy. There's just really no way around it. I tore the motor apart, rebuilt it. You can see it in the series. I honed the liners, ball honed the liners, and then put everything back together with new rings, bearings, you name it. If there was a part I could replace in the motor while I had it apart, I did it. But yeah. So you can hear the heater turning on and starting up. It sits right behind here, and yeah, it's a pretty handy feature to have, because diesel engines in the cold are notorious for not wanting to start. But if you have this little doodad here and solar power, no problem. Just let it run for 10-15 minutes. You can fire the engine right up, which I'll show you here in a minute. It is about 50 degrees out this morning, maybe 45 degrees out this morning. So it's a little cooler than normal, but not, you know, winter type cool. Let's go up in the driver's seat here, and I'll show you some more of the features. Okay, here we are up in the driver's area. This is the coolant expansion tank. It is the highest point in the system, so if you ever have to redo the coolant in the system or whatnot, you can do it from that position once the radiator is full. Basically to burp the cooling system. I have a plethora of gauges here. We'll start up top. We've got a reverse camera. I guess I could show you here. So yeah, we've got a backup camera so you can see what's behind you. In combination with the mirrors that are on the door, it's pretty handy. RPM, we've got oil pressure, boost gauge, fuel, rear differential temperature, coolant temperature, transmission temperature, transmission pressure, and then there's an EGT on the motor. This right here is just for a Garmin Navigator. If you want to run one, there's a RAM mount there and a charging cable. So as you can see here, there's just under 50 hours of runtime on Rusty since he's been prototyped and gone through and all of that stuff. We've got a glow plug switch here if you need it, and your wait to start light for the glow plugs is sitting right there. We've got a start button. This is connected to an Allison AT 545 transmission that's rated at 36,000 pounds. Some of you, I'll leave a link in the description to the Adventures with Overkill series, and some of you may know we were having problems with the Isuzu transmissions. Well, that was caused by me. I actually installed an external filter on the transmission, and there was a check valve in there that did not allow oil to go through it unless the pressure was greater than 40. So it was set up for an external engine oil filter, not a transmission oil filter, because a transmission oil filter on the external will only have like maybe 10 psi going through it, if that. It's basically just a loop going through the cooling system. Speaking of which, that Allison conversion is new, and we've tested both in the garage on stands, shifting through the gears, and we've also tested down the street, out and back a couple times, and he shifts through all the gears and he runs like he's supposed to. The coolant is making a full loop through there. That transmission has less than 60,000 miles on it, and I believe the other one I have a spare. I'm going to show you guys all the spare parts that comes with Rusty. Has 90,000 on it, so I have a spare in case you would ever need one. But those Allison transmissions are known for just being reliable as all heck. The Allison transmission I have on my LMTV is unbelievably reliable. So same company, they're used in school buses. This specific one was, but anyhow, I digress. All of your controls are here. You've got a washer, you've got a switch panel dimmer here that you can mess with, a horn, your wiper system. I use marine grade wipers on here with parallax wiper arms. Works pretty good. The steering system has quad slave cylinders on it, and it works fantastic. We've got some really big master cylinders up here, and you get a ton of steering power. The track tension is set for snow right now, so if you decide to take this out in dirt and mud and swamp, you have to tighten the tracks up, otherwise you'll throw the tracks. Also, you cannot turn as sharp in those conditions because you can walk out of the tracks, so you kind of have to use like little spurts of turning in those conditions if you don't have the tracks tightened. If you tighten the tracks up, you could probably turn full tilt with those, but for right now everything's set up for snow tension. There's a hand throttle here for warm-up, and that comes in pretty handy. I'm going to flip the glow plugs on here, and we're going to start Rusty up, and you can hear the mechanical fun sounds that he makes. I usually wait for the glow plugs to fire off twice. We do have the heater going, but it hasn't been running for very long, so we'll do it one more time, and then we're going to give them just a little bit of throttle, and then we're going to start them. There's all the fun diesel sounds. As you can see, he has initial smoke, but after that he's really nice and cool. Hot, right there. Nice and clean, I should say. And here we go, we got our gauges set up. There's a parking brake down here that works unbelievably well. It's on the drive shaft. Now keep in mind that some of the noises that you're hearing on camera are a lot louder and more defined than you would hear in person. And we've been running Rusty just like this. He will go all the way to 3,800 RPM for his red line. The top speed is about 15 miles per hour, but you have a ton of torque. So with the Allison transmission and all the gearing and the OC12 rear differential, you have a ton of torque and a ton of power. But anyhow, you can hear got good oil pressure. The fuel gauge needs to wake up. But it does work. Oh yeah. And then to shut Rusty off, you got an engine stop cable right here. I usually turn the keys off and then just pull. Stops pretty good. So the doghouse has access to the motor, and you could just flip these side panels up and over to check oil and transmission fluid and whatnot. Alternatively, you can undo both of these latches and tilt the whole thing up with these flaps back, and there's a rubber bungee up here that holds it in place. You just run the rubber bungee down to the bottom right here, and you have full access to the motor. The motor can be pulled out of the driver's side door with the seat removed. If you need to cherry pick the motor out, it's easy. You just have to rotate the gauge pod a little bit, take this housing off, take the seat out, and voila, you have easy access to get the motor out if should the need arise. It comes with a ton of spare parts that I'm going to show you guys. Right here we have a bunch of recovery and winching gear. We've got a couple of jacks and a coolant funnel and some lubricant there. There's a couple of spare grousers in here, but I have a few more in the garage should you need them. We have a bunch of spare fluids. We've got a Milwaukee case that's full of spare parts for Rusty, little solenoids, relays, wires, spare starter, spare alternator, a bunch of wiring, and some tie wraps. I think there's some hardware in here too for splicing. Yeah, so there's some sections of belt in here in case you tear the tracks for splicing the tracks back together. Keep in mind that this track design that I came up with works phenomenally well in deep snow. All of the belting and everything is from a rock quarry, and it's newer, but it was used for a short period of time until it got a tear down the middle of it, which is the section that I cut out. These tracks the belts are 12.5 inches wide on both sides, and the entire track itself, if you remove it, weighs about 600 pounds, but they're easily put back on with the front and rear winches, which is kind of a feature that I wanted to help you get those back on. But this grouser design is phenomenal, and they've worked great. And like I said, I have a bunch of spares that go along with this build. If you have somebody build this exact same track system, I called around and was just curious, you're going to pay anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. So just something to keep in mind. The tracks are the most expensive part of any snowcat. Rockets here that go with Rusty, they need to be recovered, but they can be used in a pinch. Here's the spare Allison I was telling you guys about. This one I believe has 90,000 miles on it. It was pulled off of a known working unit, and so it's just been sitting out here under the rain cover. It's fine. I couldn't find anything wrong with it when I looked at it. There's a spare shift modulator for it too. More spare grousers here. So there's a total of I believe 4 spare grousers. I have a spare cylinder head for the motor that I put new valve seals in. It's just sitting there. It needs to be decked and then it can be reinstalled, but one of the most recent additions I did was I put a brand new head on the motor and a brand new OEM head gasket, and it's been running strong ever since. Pretty dark out here, but this is a bunch of track belting that's pre-punched. I had so much extra that I just made a bunch of extra strips of it. That all comes with the Snowcat as well. Almost forgot to let you guys know, I have a ton of spare filters. This whole row here is filters for the Snowcat. So oil filters, transmission filters, all of the fluids you can imagine for the next 4 seasons come with Rusty. So there's a couple buckets of Dextron for the transmission, and there's TO4 for the rear differential, which is a Caterpillar derived fluid which works excellent in the OC12s. So all 4 of these buckets of fluid come with, as well as all of those filters. I am currently running Shell Rotella 1540 in the motor, and that can be sourced at Walmart or wherever needs be. I'm not going to get it down, but there is a stainless steel template up there for more track belting if you need to punch more holes, and all the tooling that's necessary to do that comes with the Snowcat. The trailer is not for sale. Rusty's dimensions are about 13 feet long by 7 foot tall by 8 foot wide. Something to keep in mind. He currently weighs about 7,500 pounds. When you fully load him with gear and one person, he weighs about 8,000. But like I said, you can get an additional 2,000 pounds in there for increased payload if you want. I have gone through this build meticulously, and if you've watched my channel before, you know how meticulous I am when I build things to make sure they're right. We recently went through the OC12, checked all the tolerances, had the pinion assembly rebuilt by Spryte Improvement out of Idaho. They did a fantastic job on that. But no leaks that I know of. If anything, there's just a minor rear main seal leak, but I have a bunch of those. I have another gasket kit for the motor. Just a ton of spare parts that go with them. More grade 8 hardware for the tracks. But like I said, everything is pretty much ready to go. Recently replaced all of the seals in the OC12 again. Slave cylinders, extra slave cylinders for the steering system, the custom steering system. You can kind of see it in there. It's a quad slave cylinder setup. Plenty of pressure to provide steering. I think that's probably all I can really tell you. If you're interested in purchasing a Snowcat like I was a while back, you're going to notice that the prices right now are astronomical. And if you buy an older one, I guarantee you the main problem you're going to have with it is the tracks. That's the biggest problem you have with purchasing an older Snowcat, and you can't get away from it. You're going to have to do something with the tracks to make it reliable. It's just the belting and stuff that they used back then, it would wear out and dry rot. And this is an extra thick 1/2 inch, was that a 4-layer belt that they use in rock quarry. It's meant to be abused. It's meant to have temperature changes. It's meant to just take all the abuse you can throw at it. It's the strongest stuff you can get for these. It's a little bit heavier than normal, but I mean, I've got the power to run it. That 4BD2T motor is about 170 horse and 250 to 260 foot-pounds of torque. It's plenty to move this cat around, no problem. And the gearing is set up really low, so you've got plenty of torque. It would be a great, you could use it for recoveries. There's numerous uses that you could have for this unique little Snowcat, and I've put my heart and soul, and I even smashed the living heck out of one of my fingers doing the transmission conversion on it. But we just don't use them enough, and it's really sad, and I want somebody to get some use out of it. So like I said, shop around. I don't think you're gonna find a better deal, something that's been gone through, something that's been meticulously looked at, prototyped, and then brought to this level of service. There are a few little tweaks that you'll probably have to do to get it to your liking, but that's nothing compared to trying to jump into an older Snowcat that needs a ton of work. This one's ready to go. He's ready to party, and he just wants to get out there and have some fun. So my asking price is $35,000 for Rusty. I do deliver, so we can talk about that if you're interested in meeting up somewhere. I will travel within 1,000 miles. There will be an extra charge for that due to logistics. I would think about $2,500 would be fair for that. 500 miles, $1,250 extra. But that's where I'm willing to go with it. I am in Scappoose, Oregon. I am a block away from Highway 30, which you can see in the background right there. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. If you're serious and interested, you can email me at sti2nr@gmail.com and we can talk. Alternatively, if Rusty is something you want and you're dead set on a purchase, I require 20% down, which would be $7,000, and it's non-refundable. So if you decide to back out, I would be able to keep that money. On the flip side, if we do a down payment and for some reason my truck breaks down and I can't get to you, I would refund you the deposit, but that would go towards the price of Rusty. Considering everything that's going on nowadays and what's available out there, I think that price is well beyond fair. Like I said in my Facebook post, the tracks alone are worth my asking price, definitely. I will leave links in the description to the Adventures with Overkill series where you can see him in action, and the build series, so you can go back and look and see everything I've done to get to this point. But other than that, I hope you guys are staying safe. Like, share, subscribe. That's all helping out the channel quite a bit, and I really appreciate it. When Rusty sells, you're going to see some new projects come. I don't think I'll have a hard time selling them. I've had a few people message me off Facebook already, but they're just kind of hemming and hawing. The snow isn't close enough yet, so as the snow gets closer, the demand is going to get higher, and obviously I don't believe he's going to last very long. But other than that, take care, guys, and I'll catch you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.